Aboriginal deaths in custody have long been a deep concern for this nation. In fact, there was a Royal Commission over 20 years ago. Even so, in just the past 3 months, 2 Aboriginal people in Western Australia have died in custody, one a 22-year-old girl. The deaths have again shone a spotlight on the disturbing rates of Indigenous incarceration, especially in Western Australia, where 1 in every 13 adult male is in prison. Bronwyn Herbert reports.
"66-year-old Noel Nannup is on a familiar journey. He's driving to Perth's maximum security prison for male offenders, where over the years he's had many relatives detained here. More than a third of Casuarina's prisoners are Aboriginal. Last week, his 31-year-old nephew took his own life here at this prison.
In some ways, I guess I'm used to it. It shocks me to have to say that, but that's all we know. There's been deaths in custody since who knows how long, and family members as well. Like this last instance. A member of the family.
The suicide of his relation, who for cultural reasons we refer to as Mr. Wallam, marks more than 340 deaths in custody nationally since the 1991 Royal Commission report into Aboriginal deaths in custody.
It's just awful. So there's another side of me that just aches to the core, about how frustrating it can be to have this happen time and time and time again.
Mr. Wallam was only 3 months away from release.
He just accepted a job within the prison system. He was reforming. Things were looking good. So of course, it's very disappointing.
News of his death broke as heated protests were held around the country.
Sadly, overnight, we've had another death in custody. We've had a 31-year-old man die in the Casuarina prison. This is the second death in custody in the last 3 months.
In Geraldton, family and friends of 22-year-old Miss Dew, who died in police custody in August, were also demanding answers. The young woman was in custody because she owed approximately $1,000 in unpaid fines. Miss Dew had repeatedly complained to officers about feeling unwell. Police transferred her twice to the local hospital, where medical staff gave her clearance to return to custody. She was transferred for a 3rd time to hospital and was pronounced dead.
All I know is that I lost a beautiful, loving young lady. Someone's just taken her away from me, and I need the answers for all this. So who's going to answer all my questions?
In Perth, Miss Dew's mother led another protest to demand answers from the Premier, Colin Barnett.
Okay, very sorry for what happened. I'll be with you, sis, don't worry. We'll never do
But I just need the truth and justice, that's all I need.
Aboriginal people make up just 2.5% of Australia's population, yet make up 26% of the nation's prison inmates. In Western Australia, the statistics are far worse.
We've got 1 in 13 of all our Aboriginal adult males in prison today in Western Australia. It doesn't come close anywhere else in the nation. Also doesn't come close anywhere else in the world. We're often the highest jailer from a racialised lens of our Aboriginal people than any other nation on the planet.
Jerry Georgiatis has spent more than 2 decades researching and writing about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander deaths in custody.
There will always be repeats when we don't have, for instance, some of the recommendations that were from the Royal Commissions into deaths in custody. The Custody Notification Service is actually trained lawyers who are rostered on 24/7 to make immediate contact with the detainee. The police officer must contact the service. The trained lawyer will instruct immediately the police officer on health, welfare and legal requirements.
The Royal Commission handed down 339 recommendations, including Aboriginal people be sent to prison as a last resort.
It's like the Royal Commission never happened. We're revisiting those sort of issues right now, and in WA particularly, you look at the number of people in jail and the number of people in jail because of unpaid fines, for instance. And it's one issue that really puzzles me. You know, you not only is the state missing out on collecting fines, they're actually costing the state money to keep people in jail who probably don't really need to be in jail, just for the simple way of, you know, not paying a fine.
The Corrective Services Minister defends jailing people over unpaid fines.
If prison was not an end game in society, then people would have no incentive, firstly, to either pay their fine, secondly, to do community service, because there would be no consequences if you didn't follow any of the paths or options available to pay your fines. There has to be a loss of privilege, an incarceration for those who just refuse to comply.
For Noel Nannup, the fight for justice and to keep young people out of jail continues.
It rocks us to the core when we lose somebody, and I can tell you now, in another few weeks we're going to lose someone else because it just doesn't cater for us. And then in a few months, guess what? We're going to lose another one. And it's just going to go on and on and on.